watching closely.
What's the secret, Max?
You just gotta find something you love to do and then do it for the rest of your life.
I don't want to be a product of my environment. I want my environment to be a product of me.
Hello, and welcome to The Establishing Shot, a podcast where we do deep dives into directors and their filmographies. I am your host, Eli Price, and we have J.P. Boudreaux joining us again this week as our guest. He was on... Yeah,
can't believe a whole week has gone by before from when we did this last.
Totally, definitely a whole week has gone by. We got the same shirts on and everything for this second recording.
Just favorite shirt, you know?
Yeah. Anyway, JP is joining me. He was on last week with me for the Lost World Jurassic Park. We had a really good discussion. I actually really enjoyed that discussion of that movie that I didn't like that much. But yeah, the discussion of it was really fun. So go check out that episode. I think you'll really enjoy it. And kind of working off of that, you know, obviously we're not doing another Spielberg movie this week. This is one of our supplemental episodes. And JP's done a lot of movie drafts with me, and so I was thinking, let's do a little I don't know,
some little celebratory instead of competitive, you know?
Yeah, something where we're just kind of like
I don't have to worry about your biased fans voting for you in the polls
for just
again.
Me. My mom does always vote for me, so
I have yet to see a single poll where you don't win.
I've lost a few. I've definitely lost a few.
I don't pay close enough attention, apparently.
But yeah, shout out to my mom who always votes for me. Even if she probably hasn't seen any of the movies on my list.
She looks at your list. She's like, "That's nice, dear."
Yeah. So yeah, that's your problem. You don't have your mom getting on Facebook and voting.
You know, my mom, low key. I know she's not going to watch this, but I can say low key, my mom is like my biggest hater, to be honest. I can't tell you how many times I've like shared an opinion about a movie, and she's just like, well, I like, especially if it's like a negative opinion about a movie, she's like,
yeah,
she'll like randomly comment like, I just completely disagree with you. I'm like, okay. my friends think it's like actually hilarious. Like,
that's
every
great.
now and then they'll hit up the group chat with a screenshot of her latest troll, and they're like, dude, your mom is your biggest hater when it comes to your opinions. I'm like, yeah,
well, that's great.
So she'd probably vote for you too, honestly.
Well, I hope so. That would mean your mom has great taste. But along the lines of having dissenting opinions, I figured since JP really liked The Lost World, whereas most people were more mixed to negative on it, I thought it would be fun to talk about our favorite underrated movies, or not necessarily favorite, but some of our top underrated movies. These are, we didn't really have any clear and cut criteria for this, other than it, I guess, needs to be a movie that generally people are more negative on, that we think the movie is better than those people do, that we're generally positive on. So, yeah, we'll just go back and forth, I guess, and kind of share what movies we picked. I know for my list personally, these aren't necessarily like the ones I like the most, but I just tried to kind of pick a variety between my 5 that I put on my list to kind of get some different movie feels. So, and it looks like you kind of did a similar thing with yours.
I mean, I will say, my 5 picks and one of my honorable mentions are movies that I literally have rated like 5 out of 5 stars. Like, they're literally some of my favorite movies. And my 2 other honorable mentions are ones that like are just like more like guilty pleasures. But
yeah, sure. Yeah. So, my list isn't like, I don't have any of mine as like 5-star movies, but they're all like movies that I'm positive on. Like, So that for me that means like 3.5 stars or above. So I have some 3.5 star movies. I have some 4 star and one 4.5 star movie on my list. So that's kind of the approach I took. But yeah, I can kick things off.
Let's go. Let's do it.
The one that I do have rated the highest, which I have as a 4.5 star movie, is The Fountain by Darren Aronofsky. Now, Aronofsky is one of those directors that I feel like it's kind of his movies are kind of like love it or hate it, because he makes a choice and goes for it. I have a movie that I like of his that is more hated than this movie, which is his movie Noah, that I actually think is really fun and good and interesting. But I've talked about that before on the podcast. I've done I think I picked it in the director's flops draft that I did in the past, and so I was like, let me pick a different Aronofsky movie that has generally bad ratings. So I was surprised though when I was looking at it. The audience ratings for this aren't quite as bad as I thought they were. Like, it has a 74% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, and the Letterboxd score is actually 3.5. So it's actually pretty good. I like it a good bit more than that still, but 3.5 stars on Letterboxd isn't bad. But the Metascore is 51 and the thermometer is 53. So the critics did not go for this movie. And I just think it's really interesting and good. And, you have, it's, the thing with Aronofsky is to me, he has these big ideas and he just he doesn't hold back on them. So The Fountain is Hugh Jackman in these 3 different timelines spanning over 1,000 years. They're 3 parallel stories where he's dealing with kind of similar themes in different time periods. One is more present, and one is this future where he's on this floating thing. There's this tree of life imagery. He's floating in space, through space. Then there's one in more medieval times, and he's kind of a knight. And I don't really know how to explain this movie or why I like it. But I just really loved all the choices that Aronofsky made. I thought they were interesting and looked really interesting. And I can't even say that I fully understand the movie, to be honest, but I kind of like that. I can't quite grasp it, because that means I can watch it a few more times and not feel I don't know. Sometimes I like a good movie where I'm I've got to watch that again so I can maybe understand it a little bit better. So I don't know, that was my first pick. It was, I don't know, Aronofsky, he's just one of those controversial directors. Love him or hate him, I felt like he would be a good one to include on this list.
I've not seen The Fountain, although it's one of those movies that I've always seen the poster on Netflix or something, and it's kind of intrigued me. I've always thought about maybe giving it a watch. As far as Aronofsky, I mean, obviously, you have Black Swan, which I still have yet to see, which I know is people be
for me too.
Take your cinephile card away. Maybe you should do a Aronofsky series.
That would be a good one.
Which, if you do that, I definitely want to be on the episode about Mother. That's actually a movie that, as weird and disturbing as it can be, I actually really liked for a lot of different reasons, and I think it really. But Noah, right, I have that movie rated as 2 stars. I think for me, it's just hard. It's just hard to remove my, biblical knowledge and theology from watching a movie like that.
Yeah.
But one thing I can say about Aronofsky is he is very vocal about his personal beliefs, and it comes through in all of his work.
Yeah.
especially being very really big on environmentalism and really big on his atheistic worldview as well.
Yeah,
which I think is pretty clear when you watch the stuff that he does. So yeah, I don't necessarily have anything to add to that one. But
yeah, which one do you want to share first?
Well, the one that
Because
I
as
have,
you can see, I'm going out of order from what I have.
right. Well, the one that I have to start with, just because it is a movie that's so important to me personally, is I got to go with The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Now, I will say, I as much as I do think this movie is underrated, because when it came out, it was a commercial flop, and it was also a critical failure. Like, I just checked the Rotten Tomatoes score. Even right now, I mean, we're talking 11 years later, it's at 52% critic score. Now, I will say the audience score is at 71%. So, as I talk to more people and I mention this movie, I've actually met quite a few people that are like, oh yeah, I actually really like that movie. Man, this movie is I think I watched a really good video essay recently from Cinemasticks about Walter Mitty, about how the critics just didn't get it. And I think a lot of people who watched it, especially when this movie came out, I mean, I was in my senior year of high school, I think, like in between semesters, maybe, like in between like the fall, the fall and the spring when I was graduating. So I think it was just a really impactful time in my life to watch a movie like this, and just I just identify so closely with Walter Mitty and just the person that he is, the things that he has to deal with, and just the overall message of the movie of like, just, hey, like, get out there and experience life, take risks, you know?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, like, this movie makes them want to like become like a travel documentary. It's so beautifully shot. Oh my gosh. The cinematography
and a lot
and
of really fun
colors.
sequences. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I think that basically the video essay was like, I think the trailers relied really heavily on the fantastical sequences of his daydreaming, and they kind of, and like people were expecting that, and I think that's why it flopped, because they thought it was going to be more fantasy. When the message of the movie is that, like, is Walter, because like about halfway through the movie he goes from daydreaming to like things that he would have daydreamed about become his reality.
Right.
And so it's really just a message about like, stop daydreaming and actually go like do something, you know?
Yeah.
Like make the daydreams a reality in a way. And so, yeah, it's just, in fact, you know, I just recently had like a movie night with someone, and was like, and I was able to show it to them for the first time, kind of as a way of like, hey, if you want to understand me really well, we should watch this movie. And it was nice being able to kind of introduce it to someone who had never seen it, and like kind of see it through their eyes in a way. So
yeah.
But the ending makes me tear up every time. Like, I literally like almost was sobbing in the theater when I first saw it, and every subsequent rewatch I still tear up at the end when, you know, there's the reveal that the cover image of the last edition of, oh, spoiler alert, the cover image of the last edition of Life magazine in print is him like getting the recognition. Like, he gets the recognition he deserves finally, which I really love.
Yeah, this movie is kind of special for me and my wife too. I'm like 95% sure this is the first movie we watched together.
That's so sweet.
When we were dating, my wife really was like, she loved it, and it was one of those movies she was like obsessed with, like rewatching. She's like a rewatcher. I'm not as much a rewatcher as she is, but so she was like, she really wanted me to watch this movie with her. So that it's special in that way. And then like, I think something that when you were talking, I realized like, oh, this is something that we say to each other all the time. That kind of comes from that movie, is like, one of us will like space out for a second and then like look back at, you know, the other, and like if Robin, my wife, if she like spaces out and then like I catch her eye right after it, I usually say, "Where'd you go?" Because that's kind of what Walter Mitty, he like goes places in his mind.
That's a little bit better than going, Major Tom.
Yeah.
Ground control to Major Tom. Which also, just shout out to, what's his face from Parks and Rec, whose name is escaping me right now. Adam, can't remember his last name.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
but he is so good at playing like the a-hole character that he plays in this movie, but also has arguably one of the fakest beards I've ever seen in my entire life. Like It's like a shade too dark. It's so obviously just like glued on. Yeah, it's kind of distracting actually. but yeah, no, it's great. It's great. If anyone listening to this has not seen it, you gotta watch it. And it's like good for the whole family. So if you got kids or whatever,
heartwarming.
It's great message. There's like nothing at all bad in it. It's good time.
Yeah. No, I like that pick. Hi. Quick reminder that you can be a huge help to the production of this show. If you visit establishingshotpod.com/donate, you'll find out how to join the Establishing Shot family through some giving tiers starting as low as $5 a month. You heard that right, only $5 a month. And not only will you be helping me keep the show going, but you'll also get some perks yourself, like early and ad-free episodes, bonus episodes, access to a Discord server where we can chat it up about the show and movies in general, and more. Might even let you choose a movie for me to review for the show. Check out that link in the show notes to learn more. Back to the show. Yeah, I guess I'll go back to my high school days for this next one. I'm kind of packaging two movies together with this one. And that would be Paranormal Activity, and then also skipping 2 and going to Paranormal Activity 3. I remember going with a friend to see Paranormal Activity in theaters, like on its opening weekend with a full theater. And that was just like such a great experience because, have you ever seen these movies? Have you ever seen the Paranormal Activity?
I've seen 1 and 2, I think.
Okay. So yeah, the first one, it was like one of the first like found footage movies that I watched. I don't think I had seen Blair Witch Project.
I think you could easily argue it was the most popular since Blair Witch, and I think it reinvigorated the found footage genre. It did. Especially in horror.
Yeah, and so I just love it. I just have a fond memory of that experience in the theater, and we liked it so much that I remember I went back with that friend for at least the second one, and we might have even gone and saw Paranormal Activity 3 together. I can't remember if I can't remember when that came out. But yeah, these movies don't have like fantastic ratings. The first one has an okay critic rating as far as like its thermometer. And the Metascore 68 is okay.
Thermometer, is that?
Yeah, that's the Rotten Tomatoes, the thermometer.
I thought it was the tomato meter.
I think it's thermometer, isn't it? I don't know. Now you're like, now I don't know what I'm talking about anymore.
I have never referred to that, but maybe that's the technical term.
Yeah, tomato meter. You're right. But I like saying thermometer better.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to say thermometer because that's much better than tomato meter. Anyways. But yeah, the first one has a 2.9 on Letterboxd. A 57 audience score. And I think it's just one of those things where you're going to get like a really mixed bag of reception for horror movies like this. And it's a lot of it is just tied to your experience with your viewing experience. I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was interesting, and the jump scares are good. There's like a final image that, like, thinking about it like right now gives me like kind of chills, which is kind of what you want out of a good horror movie, for a final image that sticks with you. And so, I don't know. And then 3 was just kind of like a different take on it. It was a little bit more story to it. There was a little bit more going on in 3. I don't know. It just kind of 2 was kind of a step down from 1, but I think 3 kind of took the ideas of the first one and kind of like rounded them out more to me. And there's not really anything profound to take away, I think, from these movies. But they're just really, to me, they're just really well constructed horror experiences. And that sometimes that's all you need. That's all you're really looking for. So yeah, I like those movies. I think they're a bit underrated. I think people maybe, I don't know why you want to watch a horror movie if you're not gonna like just kind of watch it for what it is. Like, but anyways,
Yeah,
that's my next one.
I think we rented the first one on like Letterbox, or not Letterbox, Redbox.
Redbox, yeah.
One night, and I think I might have been right around Halloween, honestly, because I think at the time my family, it was looking back, it's like really cringe that we used to do this, but like mostly me and my mom, kind of my sister and brother a little bit, we literally would leave church Wednesday night and then get home and watch Ghost Hunters. And eventually we got to a point where we
Ghost Hunters when I was
we eventually got to a point where we stopped because my mom was just like, she started feeling kind of convicted about that, you know, and I think that's probably for the best, to be honest. Now I feel like if I went back and watched it, I'd probably cringe pretty hard. But kind of around that same time, yeah, I remember watching the first one, and definitely really freaked me out for sure. Especially the part that always gets me is that roar on one of the nights. Kind of like it's kind of like the climax of the movie. Like, really freaked me out as a kid.
There's just guttural sound.
Yeah, it's like the demon like roars in the middle of the night and wakes everybody up, and really freaked me out at the time. Which I also would have been in high school. But yeah, I mean, I can definitely respect like their revitalization of the found footage genre, and also like the reason why, and also like because it was 6. I think the first movie was like, I want to say it was like either 30, 45, maybe 60 grand. And the fact that it made like millions and millions of dollars. Like, that's why even to this day, like studios try and force these like really, really like low budget, cheesy horror movies, whether found footage or otherwise, which this is the funny thing about horror fans. Okay. I'm just going to go on a little tangent here, because we said earlier in the previous episode that they're a bit pretentious. They also like this. They fall for it every single time. The studios will make these cheesy little horror movies that they know are not good, and they'll still make a bunch of money because people will go see them regardless. Yeah, even if it's it's like pretty obvious it's gonna be bad.
Horror fans are the most like dedicated. Like, it doesn't matter what the critic ratings are. Like, horror fans are just going to go see whatever horror movie is out.
That's fair.
Which, mad respect for that, I think.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Okay, so my number 2 pick, which I kind of briefly foreshadowed. This movie was a movie that I believe either came out the same weekend of Jurassic Park or like a week or two before Jurassic Park. Also from 1993. Arnold Schwarzenegger, classic in my opinion. Probably, arguably, I think one of his best roles outside of like maybe like the Terminator or something like that. But I think 1993's The Last Action Hero is a phenomenal movie, and very ahead of its time as well. It's like kind of sort of a parody of like action movie tropes. Have you ever seen it at all?
I haven't seen it, no.
Yeah, so the brief plot is basically like there's this kid kind of from a rough house. He's got like a single mom, and his favorite place to hang out is the movie theater. This old kind of dingy movie theater. This old man runs it, and he like literally will skip school to go there. It's his safe place, and he gets this the old man gives him this ticket from that supposedly belonged to like Harry Houdini, I think. And essentially he I forget exactly how, but he ends up getting sucked into the movie that he's watching, which is this movie.
Yeah.
It's like John Slater 4. It's the character Arnold Schwarzenegger plays, and so then he's inside of like an action movie universe with all these weird things that happen, and some of Arnold Schwarzenegger's best like one-liners and everything.
Yeah.
Like I love like because they're making fun of one-liners and
Yeah.
action movies. One of my favorite parts is like there's like a scene where this old guy kind of dies. It's like his fourth cousin or whatever. He's like, you killed my favorite fourth cousin twice removed. Big mistake. You know, it's just like it's really goofy. But then later on, they both get sucked into the real world. And then the main villain from the series, who he's not called Jack the Ripper, but something like that. It's not like the Jack the Ripper, but the character has a similar name. He gets pulled in, he also follows them into the real world along with someone else, and I don't really want to go too much more into the plot because it's a lot, but it's great. For instance, one of the things is because in this universe, Arnold Schwarzenegger, he's like in the movie playing, he's like inside the movie universe playing a character. I can't remember if it's in the movie universe or in the real world. They go to a video store and they have a poster, like a stand-up poster for Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and it's Stallone as the Terminator instead of Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's like really funny. But yeah, it just makes fun of a lot of tropes in action movies, and honestly, I think if it had not come out around the same time as Jurassic Park, it'd probably be a lot more fondly remembered because it did bomb, obviously. And I think that when you look into it, most people agree that that's probably the biggest reason why, because it came out right around the time Jurassic Park came out, which obviously became a juggernaut of a franchise. So
yeah, that's fair. Yeah, sounds like a fun movie. It's also I saw it's directed by McTiernan.
John McTiernan,
who directed Die Hard. Yeah.
So the action
making fun of his own genre.
yeah, honestly, yeah, the action sequences are great, and like I said, Arnold is great as probably literally the most macho action guy he's ever played, because that's the point of his character. But there's also a little bit towards the end where he's also playing himself as well. So because they like end up at a movie premiere and whatever. But I definitely recommend it to the audience if you just want a good like action comedy with great action, great comedy, and like I said, really ahead of its time and just making fun of like a lot of different tropes of the action genre.
Yeah, very cool. I'll put that on my list to check out sometime. Okay, let's go with, I'm kind of doing mine all out of order from how I have them, so that's why I'm hesitating. I'm going to go ahead and do a more recent one, and I'm going to do Noah Baumbach's movie White Noise. Now, this is a movie that I want to say, it released on Netflix. It was like a straight to Netflix movie. It released in 2022, so it's kind of like coming out of the pandemic. It stars Adam Driver and Greta Gerwig. Don Cheadle's in it as a big role too. And it's like this. It's hard for me to. It's hard to explain exactly what it is. It's like this kind of like dark dramedy, I guess. You could say. So Baumbach is someone who I really, really enjoy his writing and his movies. I think Marriage Story is like a masterpiece movie almost. Just love that movie. Francis Ha is really great. I enjoy when he like teams up with Wes Anderson and writes with him. Those like Fantastic Mr. Fox, I think, is just like so incredibly well written. So I enjoy Noah Baumbach, but this movie, it went straight to Netflix, and I think it wasn't like all that well received. Like it only has a 3.0 on Letterboxd. It has an okay Metascore and tomato meter at 66 and 63, but again, the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is 33. And a lot of people just really didn't like this movie. And I kind of feel like it's because they maybe thought it was a different movie than it was trying to be. It's very much like it's very much, it's this weird movie where it's not taking itself too seriously, but like touching on very serious things at the same time. It's very much like pandemic coded. Like there's something that's like breaking out. There's this quote unquote airborne toxic event that's happening that everyone's freaking out about. Adam Driver's character is like constantly wrestling with his mortality out loud. He's a professor of Hitler studies. Like it's very much like it's dealing with serious issues, but in a very like tongue-in-cheek, unserious way. But then like you get these moments of like vulnerability, like especially between him and Greta Gerwig's characters, their husband and wife, that are like really like vulnerable and kind of touching even. There's a really great dynamic between him and the Don Cheadle character in the movie, who's also a professor. There's a really fun family dynamic between Driver and Gerwig, and then their two kids in the movie. A lot of fun, like riffing. There's even like really interesting shots that Noah Baumbach isn't generally known for, like doing interesting, strange like shots in his movie. It's more known for his writing, but this one has it. I don't know. I just think it's actually really good, and people just didn't like it, and I think it's because maybe they just didn't know what kind of movie they were watching. Because it is a very strange tonally. I'll give you that. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really fun and interesting movie. But
Yeah,
did you ever see this?
I didn't get around to it before. I don't have Netflix currently. I'll probably get it back at some point, but it was definitely one I was on my list and I was interested in watching. It's just kind of like one of those things where it's like, when it came time to like pick something to watch, I'm like, I don't know if I'm in the mood for something like that. But I definitely feel like the trailer was kind of like one of those things where it's like, I didn't really know what this movie is about, so I think that probably didn't help things.
Yeah.
It kind of gave me the vibe of like Don't Look Up, which was kind of disappointing overall.
Yeah, I think Don't Look Up, it's almost like the opposite of Don't Look Up. Don't Look Up tries to act like it doesn't take itself too seriously, but really it does. And this movie is kind of the opposite. It's like it's not it's acting like it takes itself too seriously, but actually isn't, if that makes sense. It's a weird line, but yeah. But yeah, I really enjoyed White Noise, so definitely I recommend checking it out, giving it a go, even if it doesn't work for you. It's still interesting, and it'll make you laugh at least. I think there's some really funny lines in it.
Hello again. Do you know how you can really support the show for free in just a few minutes or less? That's right. Just leave a rating and review on Spotify and Apple, or wherever you listen that might allow for ratings and reviews. These really help the visibility of the podcast. In fact, just hit that pause button right now and drop the review right now. And then you can get back to the show. I'd greatly appreciate it. Okay, I trust that you went and left that rating and review now. Back to the show.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up my next pick on Rotten Tomatoes here. Okay, here we go. Just so I can look at what the score was. So
this one is pretty low.
Yeah, my next pick, also a commercial and critical failure. Although I love it with my entire heart. Um, Battle Los Angeles. Um, I think there's just something about this movie to me that feels so gritty and grounded. It's like, in my opinion, I think it's really shot like very docu style.
Hmm.
I think it's almost like who did this one? Was it? I'm trying to think of the.
Liebesman.
Oh, Lynn Leesman, Jonathan
Are you
Leesman,
talking about the cinematographer or the director?
the director.
Yeah, Jonathan Liebesman.
Yeah. Which I know the name. He's done a couple other kind of like big
Yeah.
budget blockbuster stuff. Nothing too
Mhm.
amazing, but it almost feels like very like Paul Greengrassy. You know, if you've seen like his approach to like the Bourne films or like Captain Phillips or the Green Zone. I think he shoots in a very like gritty docu style. And as far as alien invasion flicks go, it's like one of those movies where I'm like, I feel like if this happened in real life, it would be like this because like there's an entire scene dedicated to them trying to figure out the best place to shoot the aliens to actually take them out so they don't waste all their bullets. Although I will say for like a $200 million movie, the practical effects in that scene have always looked really cheap to me. Like whether like just the way the alien body looked. Um but I don't know. There's just something about this movie that I've always really really liked. And I think also
Yeah.
it's one of those movies where one of the classes I took in college was called Film as Art and Entertainment. And the first half of the class was like, what is film as entertainment and how entertainment is very subjective. Like what you find entertaining, what I find entertaining is very different. And so we had to write a paper about that. And one of my three things was if I identify with the main character, like in Secret Life of Walter Mitty, that was one of the things I really find entertaining about movies. And then the other one was one of my other three was if the movie ends and I'm asking myself what other stories are happening in this world, that's when I know it's a good movie. So Battle Los Angeles is a movie for me where you kind of hear that other major cities have been hit as well. And like, remember from the very first time I watched it, it ends, and I'm just like, I wonder what else is happening in this universe.
Yeah.
But I would also concede that I think the trailer for the movie could be argued to be better than the actual movie itself. But I personally love it. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. 5 out of 5 stars. But I will say Rotten Tomatoes, just so everyone knows, critical score 37%.
Yeah.
Audience score is a shocking 48%. So
Yeah. And it has a 2.3 on Letterboxd, which is pretty low.
I mean, yeah, even for Letterboxd, even that's pretty.
Mad respect to you for like throwing the 5 stars on it. You know, if you love it, you love it. You know,
it's one of those movies where I have no issues. Like I have nothing bad to say about it. I got it on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. No, I mean, if you love a movie, like you can't let everyone else get you down just because they don't like it. You know, it's I'm making a joke, but that actually is harder to do than than it sounds. Like a lot of people really are. They'll change their opinion when they find out, like, oh, people don't like this. I guess I shouldn't like it, or oh, everyone loves this. I guess I should love it too.
Mm-hmm.
It's like no, like if you love it, you love it. If you don't, you don't. Like you don't have to change your opinion because now sometimes I do hear like takes on a movie that I didn't think was very good, and like I'll hear a take on it. I'm like, oh, well, with that perspective, it does. Maybe I need to rewatch it now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's fine. But also, like, hey, if you like Battle Los Angeles, like, stand your ground. Like, you don't have to bow to public opinion. All right. My Letterboxd. My next one. I don't know why I said my Letterboxd. My next one, I guess because I have it open. But my next pick is one that I feel like I couldn't do an underrated movies list without having a Shyamalan pick on it. So I put Shyamalan's The Visit on here. I think it's a really, really good horror movie. It's only got a 3.1 on Letterboxd. It's got a 55 Metascore. Not a bad tomometer, whatever you want to say. It's 68. 52 audience score though, which isn't very good because it's not hard to get a high audience score on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
But I don't know. So Shyamalan at this point in his career was kind of like everyone just wanted to know the twist, and this is a twist movie. It has a quote unquote twist. I have this theory about Shyamalan though, because I really enjoyed. A lot of people didn't go for Trap, which came out this year too. I really had a good time with Trap. I thought it was fun.
You know, one of my, I will say on that, one of my favorite film guys on TikTok that I follow gave it a 4.5 stars.
Yeah,
which was pretty shocking.
I don't like it that much. Both Trap and The Visit are like 3.5 stars for me, which to me a 3.5 star is like I'm positive on this movie. I would recommend it. Yeah, I don't know what. So I have this theory about Shyamalan that he became known as like the twist guy. So like, you know, The Sixth Sense obviously was the reason for that. And with The Sixth Sense, it's like a twist you don't see coming necessarily. But then you go back and you unravel the thread and it all makes sense. But most of Shyamalan's twists aren't like, he's not trying to get you. In fact, I think with movies like The Visit and Trap, even maybe to a certain degree, there's like a sense in which he kind of like clues you into where you actually know what the twist is, but you don't exactly know how it's going to play out. And that's the fun. It's not necessarily like the twist catching you off guard isn't necessarily the fun. It's the anticipation of how is the twist going to play out. Because I think with The Visit, you can kind of see the twist, or at least like be in the ballpark of what the twist is going to be. But then it's the anticipation and the fun of like finding out like, ooh, I see this coming. How's it going to like play out in the story? What is Shyamalan going to do with it? And I think he knows that. You know, there were interviews of him making Trap where he was like, I was just having so much fun writing this. And you just get the feeling that like, yeah, he knows exactly what he's doing, and he knows that you're going to kind of catch on to what he's doing, but it's just the fun and the play of all of that. And I think The Visit is a great example of that. And I think it's a bit underrated. I think it's better than what those scores would say, would include you in on. So
yeah, I've not gotten around to seeing The Visit, but it's definitely one of the ones I've wanted to. And
it's got some good jump scares.
Yeah, I also missed Trap in theaters this year, but I will say with The Visit, I know he literally personally financed it, which is kind of crazy. And I know with
pretty low budget too.
With Trap, I heard that they shot it on 35mm film, and also they shot it essentially in real time, like
it
in sequence
great.
As much as possible. I really wanted. I missed it in theaters, but I didn't want to see it. I'll probably get around to it eventually. I think with Shyamalan, like, you know, I've not seen more of his recent stuff, but with his previous films, I mean, of course, The Sixth Sense is great. I think The Village is pretty solid.
I think so too.
But I think my favorite of his stuff, I think Unbreakable is basically a perfect film. Unbreakable's great. I thoroughly love Split.
Me too. I think Glass is good too.
Yeah, I was gonna say this isn't one of my picks, but I would say as far as like an underrated movie from him, I loved Glass. I think a lot of people didn't get it. And I think that the whole thing about like the government organization secretly killing metahumans to keep people from knowing that metahumans exist is probably what the movie should have been more focused on, because that's like the most interesting part of that movie. But I really enjoyed Glass. I think a lot of people just didn't get it and were expecting I think they were expecting like your typical big like superhero like CGI smash fight kind of movie, which I knew it was never going to be, and I thought it was great. I liked it a lot. And the ending was insane. The ending was insane. Also, Sarah Paulson's so good in that movie.
Yeah, there's several Shyamalans you could pick on this list. I considered Glass, but I ended up going with The Visit.
Yeah. So my next pick, I'm going to go with one of my favorite movies that I definitely haven't seen more recently, but definitely when I was younger, I used to watch it like pretty often. I think this is probably one of Clive Owen's best performances, if not the one that, I mean, outside of like Children of Men, which is obviously a very well regarded movie. This is the movie that I think of when I think of him. I really love Anthony Fuqua's 2004 version of King Arthur. It kind of went for, it was, I mean, you know, it's one of those movies where like it was trying to be like this like gritty, you know, realistic historical version of the character, even if the history is like not necessarily accurate. But yeah, I think it's a great, like, it's, I mean, for me, it's like in the vein of like a Gladiator or a Troy, you know, just a great, like, kind of like, you know, swords and sandals, so to speak, you know, film. Love great performances. I mean, I watched a really great video essay about this pretty recently about just his portrayal of King Arthur as like pretty dedicated, like Christian, like actually in this version, and like it's pretty obvious that he's like a character that his faith informs the way that he acts, and like it makes him like he's a very honorable man. And he really cares for his knights, which in this version they're basically like, they're basically the sons of like tribes that the Roman Empire has taken over, and the sons are like raised to become soldiers, and at a certain point when they've paid their debt, they're allowed to go home, kind of thing. And just a great cast. I mean, you got Ray Winstone, you have Ray Stevenson.
Keira Knightley is in it.
Keira Knightley is Guinevere's in it. She's great. She kind of is like the catalyst for him changing some of his perspectives on certain things. You also have Mads Mikkelsen in it as well as Tristan, and he's. I remember when I was a kid and I watched this movie, my dad was like, "I love this movie because I love Tristan, and because when he fights, it's like poetry." It's kind of interesting because he basically uses like katana-esque sword, which is really interesting, and wears like very like samurai-inspired armor, even though no one at this time probably knew that Japan existed, to be honest. But yeah, I don't know. I love it, man. I think it's got some great battle sequences. Also a great villain in Stellan Skarsgård, as almost like he's almost apathetic. Like he kind of like, he's one of those characters that like he's leading his army to try and take over the. I think if I remember correctly, he's like basically just trying to take back. He's just trying to like conquer, just for the sake of conquer. He's like a man who's bored. He has nothing better to do with his time, right? And I remember there's like a scene when he and Arthur first meet. After their interaction, he's like kind of impressed with Arthur's like the way he carries himself and his respectability and his honor. And he just has this moment as he walks away where he goes, "Finally, someone worth killing," you know? So just a really great, you know, even though their fight is not like the most, like, it's, you know, when they finally do face off, it's not like the most intense sword fight you've ever seen. Because again, it is going for kind of a more gritty approach. But yeah, no, I just think, I don't know. I don't care what anyone says. I love this version of King Arthur, personally.
Yeah, I haven't seen this
for the battle sequences alone. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't seen this one, but I'm intrigued for sure. After hearing you talk about it, and Fuqua really is a good director. I was looking at his filmography. He's got some good stuff. Training Day, the Equalizer movies, which are pretty well received.
I've not seen,
but I haven't seen them.
I haven't seen
any of them.
Part 1 was phenomenal. I thought Denzel. I mean, of course, Denzel's great, but he was really good. Part 2 was a little worse, but it was still pretty solid. Surprisingly,
from what I hear, the third one is a step back up from the second one, I guess.
Nice,
but I don't know.
I will say the second one was really funny because like
I don't think he directed the second one. I think that's the thing.
I don't-
And he did
probably
direct the
not.
third one again. No, he
Oh,
did.
well.
He did too. Sorry.
I was gonna say the second one is kind of funny because it ends up being like a 20-minute advertisement for Lyft because there's about 20 minutes of the movie of him picking up riders because he works for Lyft.
That's funny.
So
Yeah, that's great.
Hello there, listener. Don't you ever want more for your life? Don't you ever dream of surpassing the status of just podcast listener? Well, I've got good news. If you head on over to establishingshotpod.com and click the send a voicemail button on the right side of your screen, you can be featured on the podcast. I'd love to hear from you, whether it's a comment in response to an episode you liked, an opinion of mine you disagreed with, or just a question for me. And if you're too shy to have your voice featured, you can always email me at establishingshotpod@gmail.com. Don't settle for just being a podcast listener. Reach for the stars and get featured on The Establishing Shot. Back to the show.
Okay, so I guess to wrap up my list of my main five, we'll do a like rapid fire honorable mentions, I guess. But I can't do a list like of underrated movies without mentioning one of my favorite directors in Malick. I kind of cheated and paired two movies together, but it'll make sense when you hear this. Both of these movies have a 3.3 on Letterboxd, and both of them have the same tomato meter and audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. They have a 47 tomato meter and a 37 audience score. And the Metascore is even really close, 58 and 53 for these. And that is his movies To the Wonder and Knight of Cups. The thing with so To the Wonder is it has stars Ben Affleck and Rachel McAdams are the two kind of main characters. It's kind of a movie about falling in love and out of love, I guess, in a way. Knight of Cups is Christian Bale is the main character, and then you kind of have this kind of like ensemble cast of his love interests that are, I mean, Cate Blanchett, Natalie Portman, Frida Pinto, Imogen Poots. You kind of have like just a good little cast of women that go in and out of his life. This one is about a screenwriter that kind of has this empty life, looking for something to fill in a void, I guess you could say. Here's the thing about Terrence Malick. You can't go into his movies expecting like a great story, because that's just not what he does. He doesn't do stories. He does like images and textures and atmosphere, and that's like what if you want to enjoy a Terrence Malick movie, you've got to go in just knowing that with the mindset of like, I'm watching a movie that's trying to be a poem and not a prose story. And if you can kind of get in that mindset, you're going to enjoy a Malick movie a lot more. I think the problem with movies like To the Wonder and Knight of Cups, I've read some criticisms of them, and they're fair criticisms, but I still think they're I just feel like they're criticisms where the person just isn't on the wavelength of what he's doing in the movie, which is just making a poem in cinematic form. There's I looked back at my reviews of those movies, and To the Wonder, I said that any movie that can make a Sonic drive-in look beautiful is a great movie. There's a sequence with a Sonic drive-in that just like you watch it and you're like, this looks so beautiful on screen. And to do that with a Sonic drive-in, it's like, okay, we're working with a master. We're watching a master at work.
Yeah, I mean, I love a good trip to Sonic, but it's not for the aesthetics, that's for sure.
Well, if you ever happen to
It's
watch
for
To the
the
Wonder,
mozzarella sticks and the Sonic blasts.
nerds or no nerds? Do you ever get the nerds and the slushies?
Slushy? No.
Yeah,
I'm not a big
I don't.
slushy
I'm
person.
not about the nerds and slushies. That's weird to
Yeah.
me. But yeah, the Sonic Blast. That's the way to go. But yeah, that's. I'm not gonna go too much more on the Malik stuff. I guess if you can get on Malik's wavelength and watch his movies as poetry, then you'll like his movie more. That's really the whole point. And I think they're just beautiful movies to look at and see, and they're interesting. And
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, for my final official pick before we go into rapid fire honorable mentions, I spent all this time in the last episode talking about my love for monster movies, so I had to throw at least one on here, and I had to throw on what I would argue is the best shark movie of all time. I think. I mean, I can respect the fact that Jaws is a masterpiece in suspense.
There it is, right over my shoulder. If you're
But as far as monster movies go and shark related monster movies, this one I think might be better, in my opinion. I'm gonna go with 1999's classic summer blockbuster, Deep Blue Sea. This movie is incredible. I'm actually shocked. Okay, I'm a little shocked by all these people out there. I just looked this up on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm gonna be honest with you. These numbers are insane. 60% critical score, which I think is pretty solid. I think the critics get it. It's a fun movie. It's a popcorn movie.
Yeah.
The audience score, based on over 250,000 ratings, 39%. I'm sorry. Are you kidding me? Are you actually? Be for real. Be for real right
2.82
now.
on Letterboxd.
That's
Which
insane.
if you go below 3 on Letterboxd, it's not great.
That is insane. I'm like, do people just not like fun? In fact, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what, bro. A fun story about this is they have this one character in the movie, the kind of the main female scientist who is like kind of leading the research project. A lot of the things that occur, it's kind of her fault because you end up finding out she was like injecting the mako sharks with like more than they were higher dosage than they were supposed to, because like the whole thing is like, it's honestly, I wonder if it inspired the reboot of Planet of the Apes, because they're also researching Alzheimer's and like they're experimenting on the sharks because they found something in the mako sharks that can is for their research, but it makes the mako sharks like 3 times bigger than normal, and also like a lot smarter. And essentially, they end up causing havoc. It's kind of almost like the Velociraptors in like the
Doing
first Jurassic
shark
Park
things.
movie, right? It's like, honestly, that they end up acting like the Velociraptors in Jurassic Park, where they cause a bunch of havoc, and this like underwater facility ends up kind of flooding, and they have to survive. Well, originally, she survives the whole movie. And when they showed it to test audience was like, they literally got so many comments were like, you need to kill that B word. Like that's, and so they reshot the ending, which features her being killed. And you honestly, it's like, yeah, she freaking deserved it. Just because like she just is not, I don't know. She's a character you love to hate, basically, based on her actions. So I don't know what's wrong with people. I don't know. I don't know why it's at 39% on Rotten Tomatoes and less than 3 stars on Letterboxd. Everyone can get over themselves. This movie is phenomenal. I have no notes. It's got one of the most iconic deaths of all time from Samuel L. Jackson. You want to talk about a twist? He's sitting there giving the big heroic speech about how we're gonna make it out of here. We're gonna get to the top. We're gonna survive. And he's by this big open pit, basically. And then all of a sudden the shark comes out. And granted, really, really bad CGI. Because this movie was, even though it's 1999, not the highest budget movie in the world, chomps down on him, thrashes him around, brings him into the water, right in the middle of his heroic speech.
Yeah.
which no one saw coming and is so shocking the first time you see it. Spoilers, but look, yeah, whatever, man. You want that's an underrated movie. You're talking about an underrated movie right there. Apparently,
Well,
I thought
can't
it was
stand with you on this one because I still haven't seen it, and I'm pretty sure you took this in a draft.
I did in the aquatic
underwater
draft as well.
Yeah,
because all of my picks ended up being like underwater monster movies, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it's great. It's great. It's a phenomenal. It's just you pop a bucket of popcorn, you turn off your brain, you just have a good time. And also, like, it's got some legitimately great characters. I mean, LL Cool J is in it as like the chef, like the cook. His character is hilarious, and he's really great. And Thomas Jane is a really solid kind of he's more of a man of action than a man of words, but he's really solid as a leading man for sure.
Yeah. Well, cool. I might eventually get around to checking that one out. Yeah, let's go through some honorable mentions. You want to run through yours and then I'll run through some of mine?
I just took a look at I just scrolled down and saw some of yours.
Those are just my superhero ones.
Oh man, I have so many comments on 2 of those. So yeah, I have 3. I'll run through real quick. So I have The Rundown. I think from like 2003, 2004. One of The Rock's earliest films, and I would argue I think it's like the perfect action comedy. The Rock, Sean William Scott. You have a phenomenal Christopher Walken as the kind of the main villain, who's not in the movie a whole lot, but it's Christopher Walken. He's gonna have a great performance regardless. Rosario Dawson's also in it. And basically, The Rock is kind of a fixer of sorts who's kind of indebted to this guy, and he gets sent to Brazil to go track down the guy's son, played by Sean William Scott. And hilarity ensues, including The Rock basically having to become a one-man army by the end of the movie. And it's great. It's funny. It's funny. The action's great. They don't make movies like this anymore. I'll just say it that way. Next pick is a movie that again is a bit of a nostalgia watch. Is from when I was a kid. A movie that there's probably a better version of it out there in the world somewhere, but I've always really liked it, even though it ruined Sean Connery's acting career. I love The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I think it's a great concept. I think it's got some really interesting scenes. I think it's one of those movies where I'm like, I feel like it could be good for a remake, and I think it could be really solid. And then my final honorable mention, I was going to say, is Mortal Kombat 1995. My hot take on that, maybe not that hot of a take, is I think it's better than the most recent reboot. Outside of the opening sequence with where you kind of get a little back story on Scorpion, that whole opening scene was phenomenal. Everything else that precedes it is pretty terrible. I think not only is the story better in 1995's Mortal Kombat, the fights are way better. Like the actual action choreography, they're filmed very differently. They're not nearly as shaky, and it's a lot more. It's obviously all like 99% practical effects because it was the mid 90s and it was a low budget movie based on a video game. It's like the new one was very CGI heavy. So yeah, that's a couple of my honorable mentions.
Yeah, fun. I haven't seen 2 of those, but I have seen The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen a long time ago, like high school or early college maybe. And I remember liking it fine. My taste is very different now than it was then, so I don't know if I would still like it. But I did read Alan Moore's graphic novel that it's adapted from, and
I'm sure it's not nearly as good.
Not my favorite Alan Moore, to be honest. It's kind of all over the place. Like Watchmen is like a masterpiece of a graphic novel, and League of Extraordinary Gentlemen is way less. Like V for Vendetta is another Alan Moore that the graphic novel is really good. But yeah, a few of mine, I did like a little superheroes list. So I have a couple of DC ones that I think are underrated in Man of Steel and Blue Beetle. I really enjoy Man of Steel. I don't know why it's hated so much, but I really enjoy seeing Superman kind of wrestle with his Supermanness in that movie.
That's
Blue
why people hate
Beetle,
it.
yeah, Blue Beetle, I think was to me it was really fun. There's a really fun like family dynamic in the movie. Have you seen it? Did you enjoy
I've not
it?
Seen, I've not seen Blue Beetle, but I did hear.
You should check it out. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, and even like the character development is good enough where like there's even like some touching moments in it. It reminded me of Shazam. Like it kind of surprised me and like I really enjoyed it and thought it was, a lot of fun. So, and then I have a couple of Marvel ones. I really had a lot of fun with Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and Thor Love and Thunder. People didn't go for either of those really. Here's what I like about them. Those movies are examples of like they're a taste of what Marvel movies could be if they would just let really good, interesting directors just kind of do what they want with those movies. I thought like the most Raimi parts of Multiverse of Madness were just like really fun, and I was like, I want to see like Raimi unleashed on a a Marvel movie. That would be really fun to me. And then Thor: Love and Thunder, I felt like it was just kind of like really goofy and dumb, and I think it wasn't really trying to be anything other than that, and I was fine with that, and just kind of it made me laugh a lot. And and then Christian Bale was just so fun as Gore. Now, is it really disjointed and there's like 2 or 3 different movies happening in one movie? Yeah, kind of, but I don't know. I just had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. Well, I got to say, I also love Man of Steel. I think it's a masterpiece. I mean, Henry Cavill will always be my Superman. I have not seen Blue Beetle, but I wanted to. Multiverse of Madness, it wasn't my favorite. It was okay. I gave it like 2.5 stars. But I know we've talked about this before, but your love for Love and Thunder.
I don't love it. It's just, I think it was fun.
I just cannot stand it. I hated that movie so much. And it's crazy because I love Ragnarok, right? Like I think Thor Ragnarok was amazing.
Is one of the best Marvel movies.
But it was like I don't know what happened in between the two. But Taika Waititi like turned it up to 11 and it just did not work. Yeah. And even Chris Hemsworth is like, if I come back for 5, we're definitely gonna have to do a serious and different approach again.
Yeah.
Because I just everything about that movie. The only saving grace of that movie is Russell Crowe's silly little accent as Zeus.
It's fun.
It's so funny.
See, I just see the whole movie in that light.
Drink some wine, have a good time.
Yeah.
It's
dumb and fun. And I don't know. I just think the whole movie is on that same register.
They wasted Christian Bale as Gore. Firstly, butchered his design. His design of the comics was incredible. I guess when you hire someone like Christian Bale, you want people to see his face. I get that.
Yeah.
But they just made him like a dude instead of like this really disturbing, creepy looking alien creature. Secondly,
I don't know anything about the comic design.
So. Yeah, Gore in the comics, he like kind of like in the face, he's like a little Voldemort looking. He doesn't have a nose, and he's got like these like tendrils kind of thing. You should look up some pictures. He's super sick. Super sick design. I don't know why they wouldn't go with that other than the fact that Christian Bale didn't want to wear motion capture outfits. But I'm like, they could have had someone else act him out on stage and he could just come and do the voice. Yeah. Anyway. But I think it was a waste of having him. As much as I love Christian Bale, as much as his performance was still acceptable, what a waste of having Christian Bale in your movie.
Yeah. I would say like the way that the villain
I think that movie's
works
perfectly
into
rated.
the movie. I think the way that the villain works into the movie is kind of disjointed and doesn't entirely work. But I just had a lot of fun with it, and the same way you had a lot of fun with Deep Blue Sea.
I mean, now
I did want to throw a couple more, because I think a genre that is like full of underrated movies, depending on whoever's opinion, is horror. Like people, well, before I say that, I did want to say Ad Astra is a movie that I wanted to put on, but then realized like that critically it actually like did pretty good. A lot of people didn't like it, and it was a problem with the trailer. The trailer made it out to be something that the movie just isn't. And Ad Astra was like a 5 out of 5 star movie for me. I loved it.
I think that visually it was great, but I definitely didn't necessarily love it overall. Yeah.
But I did want to shout out 2 horror movies that I think are really good and underrated. Skinamarink, that came out last year. Really enjoyed that one. Just like atmosphere and weirdness and creepiness. Loved it. And then a movie there's actually a movie that just released. It's like a Rosemary's Baby prequel, just released on Paramount Plus by this director. But which I have not seen and cannot speak to. But I really enjoyed Natalie Erica James' movie Relic from 2020. I just thought it was a really good horror movie about dealing with loss and loss of family members becoming old. Anyway, I think we can wrap it up. I think we've I mean, there's definitely more underrated movies. Like I'm not even going to get into The Last Jedi, but
even mentioning its name is going to have the Star Wars bros coming out the woodwork.
Oh, I would love for the Star Wars bros to come after me, because I would just laugh and move on with my life. But yeah, it was a fun discussion. I hope maybe some people will hear some of these and go check these movies out.
Except for Thor: Love and Thunder.
I honestly just had a good time with it, and if people don't want to like it or don't want to watch it, I really don't care, because I honestly don't care about Marvel at this point either. So, if you don't want to watch new Marvel movies, then don't, because I
think I'm on board for Daredevil Born Again, but if it's bad, I've always been more DC over Marvel anyway, but I'm a DC guy. I'm also very on the fence about I really hope the new Superman movie is going to be good, and some of the other stuff that James Gunn is doing. I believe it's possible.
Yeah.
I love what he did with Guardians, but I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm wary of it, but I hope it's good, because I really like the character. So, but yeah, that was fun. Hope people will go see some of these underrated movies. Go check out our episode of The Lost World last week. Next week, we're going to be jumping into Spielberg's next movie in Amistad. So excited to jump into that. But yeah, that's all we have for this week. I have been Eli Price for JP Boudreaux. You've been listening to The Establishing Shot. We will see you next time.
We were happy here. For a little while.
But look, I figure it this way. Better to be king for a night than schmuck for a lifetime.